I think a website is more important than it ever has been. Having a website for the business is more important. Now, there obviously are some businesses that don't necessarily need a website and they can use social media. But even if you do have a website, it gives you kind of more authenticity and trust between you and your customers.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Jake Perry, after finishing university, ventured into the world of digital content writing, which quickly evolved into a successful business journey. With a passion for building a business, Jake founded DigiSurf, an agency that has collaborated with notable brands like EasyJet, White Claw, and Skyscanner. His expertise spans SEO, content marketing, PPC marketing, and web design. You can learn from Jake's journey on how to transition from freelancing to running a successful agency in a short period. His insights on client acquisition, marketing strategies, and team building are invaluable for those looking to scale their freelance operations into thriving businesses. So Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Candy. I'm looking forward to having a chat.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to our conversation as well. I would love to ask first, though, can you just tell me a little bit more about how you became an entrepreneur?
Well, so I started off, I obviously went to university, as you mentioned, and there just was something that didn't quite sit right with me. So I just saw this pathway as, like the normal pathway of, we go to university or college, as you call it. Then we get a job. We work that job until we get to the age of retirement. And then your life's been revolving around retirement. And that's when you get to live the good life, And it just didn't quite sit right with me. And I just didn't think it was something that was going to fulfill me within my life. Now, I'm not saying that that's the wrong pathway, but for me, that was just not something that I wanted to do, With that as well, along with that, I started picking up books and avidly reading books. The 4-Hour Work Week is one of them that completely changed my life. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was a really good one. So yeah, and I also kind of love traveling as well. So it would kind of be a repetitive cycle of when I finished university, I would work a job, and then I'd be in this job thinking, oh, how long have I got to work here for until I can go to a new country, And then I'd go to a new country, I'd spend all my money, and then I was back into the repetitive cycle. So, but then throughout that journey, I would also be setting up these little companies to see kind of how I could kind of make something where I was building something and it actually meant something to me. And I failed a lot. But with that failure, I think I learned, even though the businesses failed, I learned the skills that I needed to learn in order to get to where I am today. And then, yeah, that's how kind of DigiSurf came to life. And I love what I'm doing now. I wake up every day and I'm excited to start work, rather than being like, oh, I've got to do this again.
Right. Well, I know our topic today, we're going to be talking about, instead of just working on your own, being a freelancer, to actually developing a company and running that. And, you mentioned in your bio too, that, you learned some skills, even though there were some failures, you have some skills that you developed. So I would love for you maybe to just talk about what are the skills that you feel that you developed that helped you transition from, being on your own and turning that into a company, even if maybe you did have some failures in the long run, now you're running a successful company?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I learned was how to set up websites, and really like on the surface of a website, it really does look like, oh, that's pretty easy to set up a website and get people viewing the website. But when you really dig into that, like there's so much that goes into the background, whether that's just starting off kind of developing the website, but then in terms of getting people coming to the website, so SEO, marketing, it isn't just to put a website up and you can go from there. And I think when I was starting these other businesses, I was a bit naive to think that I can just set up a website and then that'll bring in loads of business and my business will just start thriving, because there's so much more to it than that. And realistically, it's kind of a weekly effort of getting your website to where it is, where you want it to be, and then continually working on it to get more visitors and things like that. So that was one skill. And another skill that I learned, and this was from working a job back in the UK for a software company, and I went into the sales department and I learned sales. And honestly, I think that is the best skill that any kind of aspiring entrepreneur can learn, because if you don't know how to talk to people and you don't know how to understand what people need and how you can help them, then realistically, you're going to struggle to grow a client base. So that skill, I'd say that is probably the number one skill that I learned along the way.
Well, I think sometimes people are afraid of that word sales too. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm pushy. I want people just to come to me. And, we don't learn these things. Even if you go to college, a lot of times they're not even teaching you this in school, right? Or even high school. I think this would be helpful, no matter, what type of education that you have, whether you go to college or not. But that is one of the things we need to learn, but I think we don't want to be that pushy salesperson, that we have that stereotype of a salesperson, right? So can you talk to the entrepreneur about, maybe what is something that you learned that's very easy to do, a quick little step maybe to kind of clear that mindset about the negative stereotype, but what they could do to successfully be able to sell their product or service?
Yeah. So sales has this thing where, like you just alluded to, it isn't about, you get when you talk to people about sales, they're like, oh, you've got the gift of the gab, you're going to be really good at sales. But honestly, the most important aspect of sales is listening. If you can't listen to someone, then you can't understand what they need, their pain points, how you can help them. If you're just talking at them, which is kind of what people expect is sales is, then you're never going to be able to kind of get onto an empathetic level and understand where they are. So really, the best sales people in any company are the people that listen more rather than the people that talk more. And with that, if you're nervous about doing sales, all you need to do is have a list of questions written down and ask the questions and get the other person talking. Because realistically, it's not about how much you say. It's about being able to control the conversation with these questions and get someone else talking. So then you can understand what buttons they need pushing and helping with. And that's how you can kind of slot in how you can help them.
Right. That's so true. Well, and you were talking too about websites and, thinking, oh, well, I could just put it up and people are going to come. And I've heard kind of two different sides of the coin, where some people will think like websites are old school. They don't even really need them. The other side, it's like you're saying, you want to drive people to your website and improve it, to continue to, have people find you and be able to, find out about your company, use your, product, services, and things like that. So do you want to maybe even touch on that? Like, why is a website important, and what are the things that we should know about how to create a successful website?
Yeah. So I think a website is more important than it ever has been. Having a website for the business is more important. Now, there obviously are some businesses that don't necessarily need a website and they can use social media. But even if you do have a website, it gives you kind of more authenticity and trust between you and your customers. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I've read stats which is like, it says something like 80% of people that are visiting a business for the first time in terms of brick and mortar, 80% of them will look you up online first to see if you're worth visiting, or if there's a competitor that has a better website, has more authority. So yeah, I think a website is always going to be something that's extremely important to a business. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Just like maybe what are some of the important things that we need to have for our website to make sure that we can attract people to our company?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to look good. Really, like when people view a website, the first thing is like first impressions count, you know? If it looks spammy and it looks like, I mean, there's a lot of spammers on the internet. There's a lot of, bad people on the internet. If it's looking spammy and, unauthentic, then people are not going to trust your brand. So I think that's probably the most important thing, is just getting it looking good to start with. And then obviously you need to kind of go down the SEO rabbit hole and all of that. That's how you get your traffic driven. But I'd say just kind of looking with good branding, trustworthy, I'd say that's the most important part of a website.
Well, and some people might think too, well, a website and, figuring out all that SEO and, all of the things that it takes to have a really well-developed site can be expensive, which is why I prefer, social media. You could have things out there and it's not expensive, so what would you say to the entrepreneur who maybe is just thinking it's just too expensive for me to really use all of the digital marketing things that are out there, so I'm going to focus on social media?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the way you want to go with things, then that's a great way to go as well. Personally, I haven't had that much success using social media. Now I write blog posts, and I have blog posts going live every, like, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. I post them all to my social media, but realistically, I don't really get that much engagement as compared to my website. If the problem that people are coming into is like the money side of things, so i.e. hiring someone to do the SEO, you can learn all of these things yourself. There's countless videos on YouTube, and there's countless courses. There's courses on Udemy, digital marketing courses, and you can learn it all yourself. So realistically, you can build a website for very, very little. All you need to do is buy the domain name, so the URL, and then the hosting plan. And then realistically, they're the only absolute bare minimum that you need. You can use free plugins, free templates. You can use the free software online like Canva, and you can really just dig deep in how to run the website yourself and learning about the SEO. And that will ultimately drive you traffic. Yes, there's going to be a learning curve, and yes, you're going to be slower than people that have been doing it for, years on years. But if you don't have any budget, but you have the willpower to do it, then you can do it for very, very low cost,
Right. Well, I know we want to talk too about going from being that individual, doing your own business on your own, to, building a team and a company that is going to continue to grow. And I know a lot of people feel like, well, it's hard to find the right people. I'm not sure how to actually train them and delegate, and it just takes longer to do it than it is for me to do it, so maybe what strategies can you pass along to the entrepreneur to guide them on how they can start this process from going from an individual freelancer to having an actual company?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a very fine line between being a freelancer and having a company, because realistically, you're kind of already a company if you're a freelancer, I mean, yes, you're probably set up as a sole trader rather than an LLC, but that's kind of just paperwork anyway. So I initially started off on Upwork. That's how I got my first client. I met a writer when I was in Mexico, and she told me she was a writer, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. You're a writer and you're a freelancer. Wow, I've never met anyone that does that. And my ears just pricked up. But I'm actually dyslexic as well. So there was kind of that voice in the back, oh, I can't be a writer, I'm dyslexic. And she kind of walked me through the process, and she was really nice. And she said, look, write me a little article and I'll tell you if it's for you or not. And I wrote her an article, and she said, she gave me a lot of confidence, and she said, you know what, there's things that you can improve on, but really good, like, you can do it. And she told me to get onto Upwork. That's how she started. You know, I had a client within a week or so, or not even a week, it was a couple of days. And I'm like, wow, you know, like getting so excited because I feel like I finally stumbled upon something that I would be happy to do for a long time. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And it got to the point where I had so many clients I couldn't keep up. So that's when I started hiring freelancers. So from Upwork, I would find freelancers in Upwork, bring them in with a little task, you know, not too expensive as a task, make sure they're up to what I need of them, and then kind of have oversight of their work. And then it just kind of slowly grew and grew and grew. I started to diversify in terms of my offerings, started to offer SEO, started to offer web design. And then, yeah, now it's just grown into where I am today. I probably have about 6 or 7 people within my team. But the thing is, you don't need to go from the traditional business model is you set up a business and you hire 5 people full time, and your yearly outgoings are, you know, over $200,000 pounds. But realistically, you don't have to start because of the internet. You have these connection points with so many people, and you don't even need to meet them in real life. You know, most of my team I've never even met in real life, which is crazy. But you don't need to go into a business with, say, £200,000 in the bank and be like, right, well, I can afford 5 people's full-time wages. You can go in really slowly and just hire people, you know, oh, I've got this project that I can't do. I need a bit of a hand, or, oh, I don't quite know enough about this subject. Let me bring in someone else to help me with this and piece it together that way. And then you can slowly build up. And then you start getting the repeat business. That's when you start to hire people part-time, full-time. But it's not kind of a 0 to 100. It's a start on your own, get to where you need help, bring in help on a sporadic basis, and go from there. Oh, that's how I did it, you know.
But someone might be thinking, well, that sounds great, right? Just go find someone, give them a task and they do it. But some things may take, you know, a bit more training. So how do you find that person, and how then do you train that person so that they are doing the job as effectively as you are?
Yes. I think a lot of the time, especially starting off, I would only really outsource things for if someone can do the task better than me, so I can learn from them. Or they can do it the same as me. However, the cost of me doing it myself is outweighed by that. So i.e. they cost less than my hourly rate. And then finding these people. Now, I have worked with a few freelancers. Well, I say a lot of freelancers that the work has been really low quality. So that's where the kind of experience comes in. And it's quite hard to find people that have the skills that you really need. But you kind of get a bit of a head start with Upwork because they have all of this feedback. One thing I would say is never start off with a huge task for someone who you're working with for the first time. Small task initially, great job. Next task, okay, we'll do a little bit more this time, and then slowly increment up from there. Because I've had it where I've given someone kind of a big task, and then when it's come to the due date, I've looked at the work and I've been like, oh no, this is due in a few days. The work's awful, you know. So that is kind of the trade-off in terms of working with a freelancer and hiring someone full-time, because you get that kind of continual iteration. Whereas with a freelancer, it's kind of you're hoping they already have the skills, but you can mitigate that by just starting off slow with them.
Right. Well, and like I said, it's just sharing what your expectation is and, you know, giving them the information they need to be able to do that task well, right? If you don't give them the information they need, they're not going to be able to read your mind, right? And be able to do it the way you think. And a lot of times I think that's what we do too, is we think we've expressed, you know, this is what I need and this is how I need it done, but it's still kind of in our head, you know? So I don't know, do you have any tips on how you can pass along that information to someone who's going to be working with you on your team, whether, you know, like I said, it's just someone that you have found who's also a freelancer, or it's someone you bring on your team long-term, you know, as an employee, or, you know, someone else that's more consistent?
Yeah, I think it's always helpful if you have someone who's going to be working on a project to have them in on the scoping call with the client initially, because then they get a better idea for the overall project. But yeah, like you say, a lot of times when bad work is passed over, there's a lot of times where that's my fault because I've not explained it well enough in terms of the brief that I've written up, the call that we've had prior. So it is all about kind of the communication side of things and making sure you're kind of aligned and just kind of being as detailed as possible. Yeah. Things like this will happen, but over time you kind of learn the most important information that people need to know to get a task done to the level that you need. And so it just kind of comes a little bit with experience in managing people and also getting to know the people that you're working with, because some people need a little bit more guidance through tasks, whereas other people prefer to just go with it themselves. It's just kind of understanding the people within your team and going from there, really.
Right. And now, because often we are working remote, just like you said, you hadn't really met, people on your team in person. And, with the way that we can just interact and work together and hire, from anywhere, like, do you have any suggestions for the entrepreneur who's thinking like, okay, I think I'm going to start this process. I want to find someone, to work with me, but I'm a little concerned about how we're going to communicate or how we're going to share, the information, manage the project. Like, do you have some suggestions maybe on software or tools to help streamline that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have everyone on one platform, whichever platform you want to use. I use Skype because it's nice and easy to call people. It's nice and easy to message. It's free. You can also use Slack, which is nice and easy, but I find it a little bit overcomplicated. And then just having everyone within the same software. I just don't believe in overcomplicating things, because ultimately, at the end of the day, there's so many softwares out there. You'd spend all your time learning new softwares if you wanted to, and also you'd be bankrupt because the amount of softwares out there, you could probably bankrupt yourself within a week if you went for every software that pops up on your Facebook feed or Instagram feed. And I kind of do that the same with all of the software across my business. It's either I absolutely need this software or I don't have it, So even to the point where I don't really have much software in terms of the management of my business. So I have a CRM now. I never had a CRM up until, a couple of months back, but that's only because I'm running Google Ads. And I keep track and I manage all my time through notes on my computer or on my phone. I just have a weekly notes, Monday to Friday. Actually, I have two weeks, Monday to Friday, written out. And then say that I'm walking the dog. Something pops into my head. Oh, I need to get this done by Thursday. Jot it down on my phone. There we go, And it's good to have a week's plan ahead. I've found that it works best if you have a week's plan ahead, because instead of them working by the day, so you're working kind of reactively, you're proactively working. So you know the things that you need to do on each day, and then you can kind of pivot as tasks come up. But yeah, sorry, I'm just rambling a little bit on about other subjects now, about about the different things that I use. But yeah, simple's always better.
But I think the main thing is you have to have a communication tool. You have to have, some way for each person to know what is their responsibility for the project. And if it's over a period of time, you need to know kind of where that project is, right, in the process. So I think just depending on the business, it depends on really what you need. But like you said, there's no need to go, buy all of these different tools. I think if you can find one that has multiple functions that are going to do the things that you need, obviously that's ideal. And things change all the time too. So you might be using one, and over time there might be another tool that's better depending on if your situation changes or the software changes too. But I think, like you said, start simple. Like, what is the basic that you need, right, to do what you need to do if you're working with a team? Again, if the goal is to go from being your own person to working, with the team and developing your company, there's going to have to be some types of, software and systems and everything in place.
Yeah. It's always better to be simple. I think that people have this idea in their head that when you set up a business, you need to get the business incorporated, get all the paperwork set out. But realistically, the first thing you need to do is go and find a client, just go and get a client. Once you start making money, that's when the paperwork needs to start. So yeah.
Get the cash coming in, right?
Get the cash going and then figure it out from there,
Right, exactly. Well, I know we're coming close to the end of the time that we have together, so I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners.
I don't really have that much of an offer, but what I do really like is if I can help people, if my story resonates with anyone that's listening to this, please reach out and contact me. I'd be more than happy to walk you through the process of where I started. And I'd get a lot of that out of that myself. That's a bit selfish, but it makes me so happy when I can move someone from a place where I used to be in terms of working a job that I didn't really like to where I am now, where I love what I do. I wake up excited every morning. And if that's something that resonates with anyone that's listening to this, please reach out. You can contact me through my website, digisurfagency.com, or my email is jake@digisurfagency.com as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jake, for being a guest on my show, talking with me, and just helping entrepreneurs understand that they don't have to stay as a freelance worker. They can build a team and a few steps that they can take to start getting into that direction. So thanks so much.
Good. It was lovely to talk to you, Candy.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.